Yeah.
What did the exploration process look like for you upon moving to the Driftless? Like, how did that go? Was it kind of like, I guess, where did you start? Like,
Yeah.
not location. Don't give us a pin, but like
Yeah. Um, well, I think it was definitely a learning process for me, and it still is, on what sign to really put time into and kind of take as, okay, I need to actually care about this or walk past it. Because up north where I'm from, sign is a little bit harder to come by. So you put more eggs in the basket of maybe not as great of sign. Um, for whatever reason, if it's the deer population and the mature buck population not being quite as high, um, I don't know what factors into them laying down sign that way, but it just seems like here where I'm at now in the driftless region, it's much like probably where you're at, where there is more sign and it's bigger,
Mhm.
and it's different in a way that I maybe can't even explain. So being able to filter that out, um, and really hone in on a certain type, or really boil down the details, as like really paying attention to tracks more. Like, is this a track that I can kind of differentiate between maybe an immature buck or a mature buck? Things like that. Certain types of scrapes, which ones I should maybe hang a cam on, and ones that are, made once and never checked again. Rub lines that are paying attention to maybe what time of year they're used versus just here's a big rub or what have you. I think that's been the biggest thing that I've learned, to maybe filter that sign a little bit. And I'm still not perfect at it. And it's something that I really focus on, this time of year
Mhm.
when we don't have snow covering everything up. That is, you can still tell rubs and stuff like that, but um, being able to kind of filter that out and dig into them a little bit more has been something I've had to do a lot more of.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's a totally different game, like you said, going from relatively fat or flat, like heavily wooded Northwoods terrain where, yeah, it's like almost, it sounds like it was kind of like a any sign is good sign kind of situation out there where you were just happy to see a rub or happy to find a scrape or whatever it may be, too. Now it's like, holy crap, I've got way more sign than I know what to do with right now. How do I filter that through and differentiate some of that stuff? And I'm right there with you. Like, I drastically or underestimated, excuse me, looking at deer tracks until about 2 years ago. And after that, like that suddenly, like after I think we're mutual friends with Jacob Sklender. After Jacob told me uh, that basically he views every track like a trail cam picture and like framed it in that headspace. I was like, oh, okay. And then later that year, I tracked the same buck all around this marsh and this river bottom property I mean, I'd get in there 3 hours before daylight and just try and find his track and figure out where he was going for that day. And was not nearly as effective as I would have liked to be at doing that. But
Yeah.
yeah, getting into that headspace is a big one for sure. On the note of you mentioned like kind of deciphering different scrapes a little bit. What did that process look like for you? And like what do you look for in a scrape that you're actually gonna give some weight to?
Sure. So I did. I mean, I had some conversations with some people about scrapes early before this season, kind of to get more of an expert opinion. People that I don't run a ton of cameras like over scrapes and really like collect data on them per se. But I talked to some guys that really have experience doing that, whether they, have money and time invested in a certain product that they run on scrapes. So they just happen to run a bunch of cameras and take inventory on them, and know scrapes very well. Is You can kind of tell a lot by, I don't necessarily look at the ground as much as, like, that's like when you're first starting to pay attention to scrapes and learn and dig into them as a newer hunter. I feel like you just assume the bigger the dirt spot on the ground, the bigger the deer. That's what I was always told when I was younger. And I've kind of threw that out and have really started focusing above the chest and on like the licking branch. and paid a lot
Mm-hmm.
more attention to that portion of a scrape. Or the only really thing on the ground that I pay attention to anymore is how deep it is. Like if it's dug into the ground. Obviously, you look for tracks, but a lot of times in certain areas you can't really tell a track very well um, in it. But if it's dug into the ground a little bit, that tells me that it's something that gets used year after year after year, usually, or it's
Right.
getting really hammered that year for whatever reason. Um, but yeah, I kind of focus on the licking branches now, to where if it's an area with like a thicker than your finger licking branch, and especially has multiple, those seem to be like, depends on the area, but usually those are a community scrape where there's multiple deer using it, whether it's fawns, does, bucks, multiple bucks. It just seems like usually those are in areas that converge terrain wise, and that a community scrape you could kind of expect to be there.
Sure.
But like a bigger licking branch with multiple licking branches. And then one thing people don't think about that I've kind of put in some weight in recently in the last couple of years is uh, the type of tree and how fresh it is. Um, like if I happen to find one that is like dead and is like dead and not going to come back, that licking branch, I don't think a deer necessarily is going to use that for in the future. I think they might put one nearby, but if that's a good area. But when it's a fresh limb and it's green, I guess. I listened to some other research about those trees giving off some sort of pheromone or something that
That
really keeps that
norepinephrine or
yep,
whatever it is. Yeah.
yep, that keeps it active, and I think that does help. Um, at least for that year, being whether it's a new scrape or it's a tree that keeps coming back and has multiple licking branches, they can use a different one every year or break it off more, and it stays fresh.
Hmm.
Um, so those are all factors I kind of have been looking more into. Like I said, I'm not an expert in them. It's just little things that I've kind of picked up over the last couple of years that each year I kind of focus a little bit deeper on them.